Well, we've been seeing this going on for a while now. Bill 96 is affecting different areas of our education sector, and now it's impacting a young student's ability to attend her last year of high school. Julie came over from China to study about 4 years ago, and now, just when she's about to enter grade 11, she's being told the government will not give her an English eligibility certificate, which she got every other year prior. Julie spoke with Aaron a little earlier this week, and her story was heartbreaking. Now, here to explain what's going on for Julie and other international students like her is Russell COPEMAN, Executive Director of the Quebec English School Boards Association. Thank you for your time, Russell.
Good afternoon, David.
So tell me first what the system used to do with international students about being educated in English.
So if they were here temporarily or their parents were here temporarily and they were foreign nationals, they could obtain a temporary certificate to study in English. Those certificates were for 3 years, but they could be renewed. And what essentially happened was, as long as the family was here temporarily, whether it was 3, 4, 5, or 6 years, those temporary certificates were renewed in order to allow the student to attend school in English. Now, Bill 96 changed that by continuing the notion of 3 years, up to 3 years, but added a phrase, sort of innocuous, but that's what's kicked in and is so difficult. They may not be renewed. So it's a maximum of 3 years because they can't be renewed. And so this is what's happening. It's throwing, people into a bit of an educational disarray. And producing stories like the one that we've heard about over the last couple of days.
So could there be a way to have renewal, or is it automatic? After 3 years, now the government says no renewals at all?
Period. No renewals at all. In fact, David, it's worse than that because we're aware of about half a dozen cases, and there may be significantly more, where even within the 3-year period, less than 3 years, the certificate is not being renewed. In other words, if a family was here on a 1-year visa and they applied for a 1-year temporary certificate because that followed the visa, but the visa was renewed by Canadian authorities, as it often is, those children are being refused, even though it's not been 3 years. And they're being refused because civil servants in Quebec City are saying, well, it says in the law that they can't be renewed. And we think that's an overzealous and some would say petty interpretation. The intention of the legislator, as far as we were concerned, and we participated in the parliamentary hearings on this bill, was to limit it to 3 years. By the way, an intention which we don't agree with. Our proposal was to have it 3 years with another 3 years renewable.
Sure.
And that would allow someone to finish high school or finish elementary school. And we thought that was appropriate as long as they were here temporarily. The numbers are relatively small. That is not going to make any difference to to safeguarding the French language. So, we're seeing this sort of petty interpretation that's even catching people with less than 3 years because of this notion of renewability.
So what happens to a person like Julie here? So now she has to transfer to a French school?
Well, unless an appeal is lodged and is successful. I mean, there is another possibility, David, and it's one that has been used fairly significantly by previous ministers of education in previous governments. And it's it's an exemption based on humanitarian
There you go.
Basis, right? And for example, I'm going back some years now, but when Claude Ryan was Minister of Education, he automatically granted humanitarian exemptions for anyone in Secondary 4 and Secondary 5. And the thinking there is, if they've done their studies in English either here or elsewhere, and they've come to Quebec in Sec 4 or Sec 5, it is exceedingly difficult for them, if they have no French, to start a French language course of study in secondary 4 or 5. You have to take a year of classe d'accueil, etc. Why not on humanitarian grounds allow young people finishing high school to do just that, finish it in English, get French second language instruction in our school boards, but at least, that is, we think, the much more appropriate way to do it. Not all ministers have done that. Mr. Drainville could, if he wanted to, under these humanitarian grounds, and we would urge him to do just that.
Speaking with Russell COPEMAN of the English School Boards Association of Quebec. Russell, do you know, is the association, or do you know if the school or anybody is assisting the student, the family, to try to appeal to the minister's exemption powers?
Yeah, David, my understanding is that the school is involved. You can appreciate, Quebec's English school boards have departments and services to help people prepare the documentation, get these certificates of eligibility. But I think you and your listeners will understand that they do that for prospective students in public school. They do it for their own applicants.
Sure.
We don't have the capacity, nor do they, to be assisting individual cases in private schools.
I understand.
That's not our role. And
I understand. I was just trying to understand if there was any type of support out there, possible, accompanying this student through this process that came really out of left field.
Right. Well, as I say, we do it for students in our school boards, and I would hope that the school in question would be doing it for that student.
No, I understand. So, look, I'm a Francophone, as you know, and I have no clue how this protects and promotes the French language in Quebec. I have no clue. So could you, as you said, you sat through the parliamentary hearings, you intervened. What's the rationale here? Because we're talking about cases where you have people coming in on temporary work visas and have their kids, just learning and just on a normal track, which is learning in English because that's their language. So I don't understand here.
There is, I think, really no legitimate explanation for this. The rules are so strict, David. If someone is here on a temporary certificate, by the way, and they apply to become permanent residents of Quebec, at the end of that school year, these temporary certificates are automatically revoked. So if a person who is here temporarily even begins the process of staying permanently and they're not eligible for English schools by virtue of the Charter of the French language, they are shifted over into the French system the following school year. No one is getting, it's not a loophole. This thing was sort of described as a loophole by Justice Minister Jolin Barrette. It's not a loophole. The attendance of these students almost never results in sort of a permanent right to send their children to English schools. The Minister Jolin Barrette could produce not a single example of someone who theoretically studied here temporarily for 6 years, then became a Canadian citizen, wanted to remain in Quebec, and therefore got access to themselves or their children, future children, in English schools. It's a complete absurdity. And there are at any given year about 3,000 students studying with these temporary certificates out of a student population in Quebec of 1 million students. This makes no difference whatsoever to the protection of the French language. And these types of overzealous and petty applications of Bill 96 are only hurting individuals needlessly.
Absolutely. And I'm going to add, I think it hurts Quebec's reputation abroad. I mean, because these stories will continue to happen and come out. And, when foreigners come in and have a choice to invest and develop business and the Quebec economy, they'll think twice because of stories like these, won't they?
Right. But it's not just that, David. I mean, it's going to dampen, we believe, and there's some demonstration of that already. It's going to dampen, for example, someone from the United States who might want to come up here and be a research fellow at a university or a hospital.
Great example.
The rabbinate in Quebec, rabbis are largely, almost exclusively trained in English Canada or or in the United States,
Yeah.
many of whom are Americans. They would not normally qualify because they're Americans to come here and send their kids to English schools. Well, now they can only do it for 3 years. So, there's plenty of examples of international companies transferring people here who need that exemption, that used to get it for as long as they were here temporarily, that now is limited to 3 years in the field of research, in the field of medicine, in the field of international business. And these rules are dampening all of those opportunities that do nothing but improve the Quebec economy and Quebec society.
Well, the only thing we can do right now is hope for the best for Julie and all others in the same case. But I think the one thing we can do is shed some light on this and talk about this, because that's, I think, the way change will eventually come. Russell, appreciate your time this afternoon, and have a great weekend.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, David.